Where is it raining? How hard is it raining? Where is there runoff occurring?
Are we going to have enough moisture even to work with?
Well, that's a question that we've been trying to answer to figure out to maybe make them a little bit easier for probably decades.
What is the Super El Nino? Why? The reason I was laughing at that question is...
Oh, that was on me? Oh, man. My bad.
What is an outflow boundary and why do I care?
Is it okay if I add to that question, though? Hello, everyone. This is Jonny Malloy. I'm a meteorologist with the Flood Control District in Maricopa County.
Hi, everyone. My name is Whipple. I am also a meteorologist with the Flood Control District in Maricopa County.
Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel Henz, the Flood Warning Branch Manager here. So the reason I was laughing at the question, which was, why does it seem like it's raining in my neighborhood and not in your neighborhood, or maybe you got it across the street and I didn't get it here? Monsoon thunderstorms are really localized. Maricopa County's huge. It's 10,000 square miles, or roughly the size of New Jersey or Vermont. Phoenix metropolitan area, the urban corridor, if you will, is 2,000 to 3,000 square miles with 4 million people. And your typical monsoon thunderstorm is roughly 10 square miles. So it's literally hit or miss, where you might be getting rain across the highway and then sure enough over in your neighborhood, nothing.
Even after a storm passes through an active monsoon day, if you look at our alert network, you do see this place got hit, this place got missed, that one got hit, that one got missed. That's just the nature of the monsoon. These thunderstorms are only a few miles across usually, and as they move through the valley, some get hit, some don't. For the El Nino, we're looking at the Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean is massive. But if you look at the area all the way from Mexico, South America, all the way to Indonesia, we are actually looking at the sea surface temperatures there. So during El Nino, we see those warmer waters actually come closer back to us. So how that works scientifically is that the trade winds along the equator, they ebb and flow. So they get stronger and they get weaker. When they're weaker, I've heard a good example of this, it's like a bathtub sloshing. So all that warm water on the surface gets piled up in Indonesia with stronger winds. When they weaken, that allows the warmer waters to start migrating further east. So you get this warm pool that's closer to us, and that can affect not only our weather, but really around the globe. Really, it has an effect on a global scale. So that's kind of the quick of El Nino.
So El Nino affects the North American monsoon, specifically in the later monsoon season. So typically in early monsoon, we're seeing storms that are associated with moisture being pulled southward, and then you have these daytime really localized thunderstorms, kind of popcorn storms that come out of nowhere. But when you get into the late season, into maybe late August, September, and even into early October, that's when you're getting your Pacific activity. So El Nino, like we've talked about, contributes to warmer water in the Pacific, which can then contribute to more tropical storm development. Tropical storm development is moisture, it's energy, and if that times correctly with maybe a disturbance, or it moves just the right spot into the desert southwest, we can get a lot of rain.
Simply put, just a really strong phase of the El Nino. So our wonderful folks over at NOAA will classify either La Nina, neutral conditions, or El Nino conditions. And so when you're in neutral, those sea surface temperatures that we were talking about are within a half degree of what would be normal. And then when you get a strong La Nina or a strong El Nino, you might go from a half degree to 1.5 degrees above what's considered normal or below what's considered normal. And then we can have forecasts kind of like what we're seeing for this upcoming fall and winter, where predictions are for sea surface temperature departures to be maybe 2.5, maybe upwards of 3 degrees greater than what we consider to be normal, or warmer than normal in this case because of El Nino. So a really strong El Nino, or a super El Nino if you want to make it sound cool. What is an outflow boundary and why do I care? So all thunderstorms have two main features associated with them. They have what's called an updraft, where air is being lifted and cooled. We're condensing rain droplets and hail and all sorts of other stuff. And then they have what's called a downdraft. So as soon as the air that gets to a certain point where it's cooled off, it will actually start to fall back down out of the sky and out of the thunderstorm and back to the ground in that downdraft. And each thunderstorm produces an outflow boundary when it's in its decaying phase. And you can think of it like a mini cold front. Cold air rushing down out of the storm, spreading out away. It picks up dust. It may pick up loose objects if you're in the city. But again, outflow boundaries are part of the downbursts, downdrafts, the cool air that emanates from a thunderstorm in its decaying phase. And it actually can act as, again, a lifting mechanism for new thunderstorm development.
Yeah, and I'd just add to that a little bit and saying just that because during the monsoon, thunderstorms typically are isolated. They form on the mountains usually first, and then they can propagate in the valleys. And what Dan was describing, that's how they do it. So throughout the day, these outflows are like connectors for thunderstorms to start, decay, collapse, and start a new one. And they can propagate all over Arizona into the valleys, even in the overnight hours. So they're really important actually for spreading rain throughout the desert Southwest on a local scale. I think they all do. I mean,
That's
all.
the answer.
Yeah.
They all do.
It's just some are more dramatic in fashion, I think. So when we have enough moisture for those downdrafts to be visible, you can get even microbursts, right? So these are the columns that seem to emanate from the base of a thunderstorm. And what you'll see if you were to do like a time lapse, you'll get the thunderstorm bubbling up. It looks awesome. It gets height. It starts spreading out with the anvil winds, and then you get the downburst, and then you get that separation where you get that cap cloud, that anvil cloud just kind of moves off with the prevailing winds while everything else is gone afterwards. Just the outflow might trigger a new thunderstorm down the road if the environment is favorable for it. So they all collapse.
Question that we've been trying to answer to figure out to maybe make them a little bit easier for probably decades and decades and maybe even longer. They're really difficult to forecast, one, because large-scale models can't pick them up. So monsoon storms don't form because of cold fronts, because of dry lines, because of large-scale synoptic features. They're a smaller scale, and they're associated more with like energy and instability associated at the surface, related to wind shifts and moisture availability. And all of those factors that I just named, a small change, maybe just a little too dry of an environment, or maybe just the wrong wind shift, maybe the wrong angle, the wrong timing of storm development, can all change what an evening during monsoon season looks like. And so that's why it's so tough to really get into the details and say definitively what it's going to look like.
Monsoon forecasting is difficult. It's challenging, and I think it's important for everyone that has a stake in a forecast to understand the limitations. Even in modern meteorology, there's limitations to how far out we can go with confidence in a forecast. And so in the current day, even with all our technology and all of our computing models and everything like that, there's a general time frame that we can follow for identifying a potential high impact flood event. And first thing, about 7 to 10 days, that's when these large-scale models that Hannah was talking about give us an idea of the larger picture, the moisture fields. Are we going to have enough moisture even to work with for a thunderstorm, right? So when we're a few days out, not only can we know the moisture values, but then we can start looking at the instability profiles. Then we can actually start seeing where the storms, if they do form, where they're most likely to impact. When you start getting within the 48 hours, that's when we can really start honing in on whether this situation can be a high impact flooding event. Now you have to get within a day though, even hours, this is nowcasting, to really understand, especially because the valley is so large in the county, 10,000 square miles. So within hours, we can actually start locating what part of the valley will be the hardest hit. So again, it's really that week to hours kind of funneling of our confidence.
To make a quick analogy, forecasting during the monsoon season is like trying to bake your dessert over an open flame, okay? You know the ingredients that you need to make a really good cookies or cupcakes or a pie, right? You can use all those ingredients, in this case moisture, instability, the right wind profile. But now you don't get an oven to work with as forecasters. We get an open flame. So we've got to put those ingredients over an open flame and hopefully cook it to the right temperature without a thermometer. Sometimes it works out and we get the best cookies we've ever had. Sometimes that forecast doesn't work out. Even though we had all the right ingredients, we burn the cookies or the pie didn't sit at the right temperature for long enough. Truly, it's such a fluid situation. Even the best forecasters struggle, even under the best circumstances. Yeah. And that's okay though.
And I love that analogy because it just like with baking and cooking, why monsoon forecasting can be so challenging is you can have too much ingredients. So this is kind of
too much chocolate.
Too much chocolate or too much water vapor. So we've seen this a lot where it's kind of ironic, but you can have a situation, and it happens every season. It can be too wet to rain. So what do we mean by that? In the atmosphere, this is usually a situation where we have a big thunderstorm outbreak one day, and then it's usually quiet the next day. Well, the reason is because the atmosphere has to reset. So a lot of moisture in the atmosphere actually can be more stable. So this is like more cloud cover, right? So it's blocking the surface heating that drives a lot of our monsoon thunderstorms. So you can have situations where you have too much ingredients where it forces not rain to happen. So yeah, it's tricky.
The alert network helps during storms in multiple different ways, okay? So if we're trying to nowcast, where is it raining? How hard is it raining? Where is there runoff occurring? What areas of the valley is that runoff affecting? That's our primary mode of detection here is the alert network. Again, we have those 400 plus stations that are spread out across the entire county that are giving us live information. Quite literally, it's near real time. The tipping bucket that's registering rain, that data gets sent instantaneously back to our system and we can see it in less than a minute from when the tip occurs. Runoff, as water's moving through the streams and channels and filling up basins, we're watching it happen live. Now there's another unique characteristic about the alert network that makes it very powerful for us, and that is we're not only are we getting that instantaneous rain and runoff information, but we're also recording weather information, so temperature, dew point, wind speed, and direction. And those atmospheric variables also can tell us a little bit about what's going on right now, the potential of additional rain to come, which again could worsen a flooding situation. So not only are we getting the live data, we're also getting a kind of a snapshot into what's going on in the atmosphere and what might happen in the near-term future. And we can use both of those in the flood warning program.
Both.
Yes, that's the answer right there.
It's 100% both. It's fun as a meteorologist when it rains. I think everyone in the entire county agrees that it's fun when it rains, but there are actual impacts that come with this rain. There's flooding, there's lightning, there's wind. There are lives and property that are still in danger when there are storms. As fun as it is, there's still actions that need to be made, and we're kind of the front of the line with that. We're the ones that know the weather. We're the experts. We know when it's coming. We know where it is, and it's our job to communicate that. And that's a big task. It's a big role to play. So there's a balance of saying, oh yes, it's raining, and it's raining at my house too, which is awesome. But now I have calls to make. I have maybe flashing road signs to activate. I have all of these things to do, and now I have to stay up until 5 a.m. because it might not end for, 6 or 7 more hours.
Excitement. I absolutely love the monsoon. It's one of my favorite seasons. It's why I, went into college. It's one of the reasons, the spark when I was a kid of getting in the weather. The monsoon is so powerful, so elusive. We talk about how challenging the forecasting can be. So scientifically, it's intriguing. Even in the today, it's not a guaranteed forecast the next day. I mean, that's crazy to think about in the modern age. But yes, weather is very complex, and the monsoon really showcases that. So it's exciting to see the rain and the thunderstorms. But as Hannah pointed out, they do come with impact. So we're very wary of that, and that's why we do have the alert network. That's why we have a team here at the flood warning branch who's really at the front lines every day, among others in the Arizona weather community that are interested in severe weather that the monsoon brings.
That's unfortunately the fate of being a meteorologist. Yeah. and they're quick to remind me when I miss a forecast, and rarely do I get props when I nail a forecast. But that's okay. Part of the responsibility of being a meteorologist and an operational meteorologist, you can ask anyone, whether it's here at Flood Control or the National Weather Service, is trying to communicate what we believe to happen and give you the opportunity to make good decisions. You know, if it's going to be a bad weather day, keep an eye to the sky, keep it up on what's going on with your local news or your local weather service or on social media. Maybe not driving through those flooded roadways, you know. So again, yes, everyone always asks, is it gonna rain? And even when it does, it doesn't rain enough. Or if it rains too much, then it rains too much.
It's so true.
Monsoons are not a thunderstorm.
Oh, there you go. That's funny.
Monsoon is the season. It's the seasonal change in wind that brings in moisture and helps thunderstorms develop. But a monsoon is not a thunderstorm.
Ooh. I'll say a common phrase that I seem to say is, it's going to rain, but there's always an exception to this. And we already talked about the spatial part of it. I mean, one thunderstorm can't cover the whole valley. That's just not in the nature of what the monsoon does. And forecasting that one thunderstorm and its movement is already complex enough. So the idea that there's an opportunity for rain, but you may get wet and your neighbor doesn't, that happens so much. Apologies in advance, but we're going to be saying it again this year.
The first sign that the monsoon is here actually happens in the mornings and the evenings. It's a certain, I don't know, is it like a raz? But it's Apache cicadas.
Oh,
so as the moisture levels change, I know all of you that live in the valley or have been in Arizona for a long part of your lives have heard that sound, that zzz, that buzzing sound. That's one of those quintessential sounds that always lets me know that the monsoon is spinning up or is completely underway.
I would say the monsoon gets here when I look at the calendar and it says June 15th.
I guess I can hold this. I would say the monsoon has arrived when I take a drink out of the fridge, put it on the counter, and it's water everywhere. Like you see the beads blow up on there and it leaves a wet ring. When you see the wet ring on your table, the monsoon is here.
Well, unfortunately, I don't get to storm chase a whole lot. Working in the operational flood warning program, my job is typically to be right here, working in the alert room here at the flood control district. Though one of the interesting things about working operations is we tend to remember all the big events. So whether it's the September 8th, 2014, 3 to 5 inches of rain, and even though we're not necessarily out chasing that, I don't know that a whole lot of people were, right? With all the flooding, roads are closed. Lucky to already be in office. I saw quite a bit of water out in front of flood control. In fact, our parking lot was underwater along with all the roads around here. So while I'd love to be out storm chasing more often, most of the time my responsibilities keep me here.
I can't say I have not storm chased, and maybe some of that is attributed to being a young, fresh meteorologist, so haven't had too much of an opportunity. And I can't say I have much motivation to go storm chase. I don't think that my brain's wired that way. I like the rain behind the screen, behind the counter, and just watching the impacts and kind of communicating that. I'm not sure if I'm built for chasing them and hunting them down.
Well, I'll say, yeah, similar to Dan and Hannah, no, not actively storm chasing. And with the monsoon, one thing about the monsoon and the nature of it, really you can do porch storm chasing. So there's often times where you're at home and you can just watch it roll in and it's a show, whether it be the dust storm first and the rain hopefully afterwards. There's a lot of opportunity to actually see the severe weather right here in the valley, which makes our job that much more important than everyone else here at flood control. So we know it can rain here and we know it can rain hard. So that leads to flooding issues. So yeah.
I love that you mentioned that. I do have a short series I like to do every summer from Dan's Ruth at Ahwatukee House on South Mountain. Like to go up there and enjoy a beverage and watch the thunder and the lightning and I guess listen for the thunder, watch the lightning, enjoy the storms moving up south out of Pinal and Pima counties. So
Absolutely, yeah. And then what's
porch
cool,
chasing.
porch chasing, yeah. And you don't have to actually have the full impacts at your porch to experience the weather. What's great about the monsoon is usually the mountains are lit up almost throughout the entire season in some fashion. So watching the storms blow up, and then when the sun sets, you can see that flash lightning in the distance. It's just an amazing time to be here in the valley. So the biggest flood myth, I believe, is that you can still drive through the water. You can't do it. It's so deceptive. And the power of water is amazing. You don't know if that road is there any longer. You know, there's damage that happens when you have high flows in the desert. You know, constantly, even the desert channels are changing after every event. So now you think of our roads, they're taking damage. So you don't know if the roads are going to be there, and you can really underestimate the power of water quickly. I think one big takeaway is eliminate the peer pressure. Just in your head, know that you will not cross through flooded roadways. Even if there's someone behind you honking their horn, it doesn't matter. Make your own decisions, save your life, save those around you. And then also, if you do get trapped, you're also putting the responders in danger as well, trying to rescue you. So I think the myth of being able to, your big old vehicle can go through the flooded water is not true.
I think one of the biggest flooding myths that I'd like to address here is sunny day flooding. So here in the desert, a lot of times people go out in the summertime. They want to go visit the mountains, the parks, be near streams. It's sunny outside. I'm going to be totally fine. I don't need to pay attention to the weather. Well, unfortunately, that's not the way it works here, especially in the desert Southwest. Rain can be falling 20, 30, 40, 50 miles north of you, up in the higher terrain on the Mogollon Rim. And those floodwaters can make their way down through the watersheds to where you are, where it may actually be sunny. There's no rain. You can't hear any thunder. You don't see any lightning, but flooding can still be a problem. So that's why we want you to stay weather aware, especially if you go out to the local parks, if you're going out hiking, if you're playing in any of the washes, anywhere up on the rim. Just make sure you're weather aware, because it doesn't have to be raining over you to be affected by floods.
I think the water you can't see is just a little bit more dangerous because you can't see it. You know, you don't know how much it is, you don't know how fast it's moving, you don't know what's in it, you don't know how soon it's going to get to you. And so there is that sense of uncertainty is definitely a factor when it comes to flood danger. Most people, I would say, if you see flood waters, I hope that you have the instinct to understand that water is dangerous and it's right in front of you. You know where it is. You can see how much it is. You can verify it, you know, with your eyes and ears right there. So the water you can't see can have that, you know, kind of extra level of danger because of that.
And I'll follow up on that. Why the water you can't see can be so dangerous is because just if you look at the climatology of how thunderstorms behave in the desert Southwest, especially Phoenix area, oftentimes our heavy rain events are at night. What does that mean? You can't see the water. So that, again, going back to the idea of never crossing through a flooded roadway, you may be familiar with your route home, but all of a sudden it is underwater and you may not be able to see it until it's too late. So that's why it's always important to pay attention to the forecast and just have awareness of what the environment is around you for flooding. So a lot of nighttime flood events happen in the valley, to your point, Heather.
Just adding on to that in terms of nighttime flooding too, unfortunately, a lot of the deaths that we see as a result of flooding occur during the night. As Jonny alluded to, your typical way to get home may pass through washes or streams or channels, and if it's full of water, you're not going to see that water. Again, NOAA does quite a few statistics on related to thunderstorms, flooding, all of that, and fatalities, and they have shown that 2/3 or more of the fatalities resulting from flooding occur at nighttime.
Well, I definitely want to point to Maricopa.gov/weather or Maricopa.gov/monsoon first as a resource. And really the key there is that alert webpage that's been developed by especially Sandra Miller, an architect behind there. So that gives all of our data available publicly in near real time. So you can actually see stream flow, the heavy rain accumulate during an event as it's happening. So maybe not necessarily an app per se, but a resource online.
The absolute best place to look to see if it's raining by your house is the Flood Control District alert page. We have 400 plus gauges all across the county, and I couldn't tell you the density on it. It is dense. I would say if you're in the Phoenix metropolitan, there is a rain gauge that's pretty darn close to your house that can represent how much it's raining by your house, and so that's a really great resource, and you can see it real time.
Yeah, so I'll piggyback on that and just say that this is actually kind of, we talk about a data void area, but not us. So if you go back to even 2000, we have averaged over 300 gauges actively on measuring storm events as they happen during the summer months from back in 2000. So a lot of gauges, a lot of data, a lot of awareness when it comes to monsoon activity. Last monsoon got really active towards September and especially October when we had the remnants of Priscilla and Raymond. So again, that Eastern Pacific tropical activity can really influence our weather, especially at the end of the monsoon. And so we had some significant rains. So that was clearly a benchmark for working in the operations for how active we can get, with the responsiveness we can have, the awareness we can have, the education we can provide to the public to stay safe during imminent flooding. And that went on for a few days. So these September to October events were multiple days of heavy rain events. So I would say the tropical activity at the end of the monsoon 2025 is a big one for me.
Another one of the big events that always sticks in my brain, I've been now with the Flood Control District for nearly 15 years now, actually occurred just a monsoon season after when we had all those big events in 2014. It was actually in July of 2015 in a small town on the northwest side of Maricopa County, the town of Wickenburg. So the Flood Control District, we manage 3 small dams up in that town. And in mid-July, we had, again, one of those transition type events where we had roughly 3 or so inches of rain that fell in a 60 to 90 minute period. That rainfall all resulted in significant flows through the town of Wickenburg, and all 3 of our dams filled up in less than 90 minutes. And that particular event was so significant, not because the dams overtopped or there were any issues there, but it changed how we thought about how we get ready for floods, how we at the district mobilize, speak with a local jurisdiction, but how we get our folks where they need to be and how we do it faster and how we communicate better. So those kind of events that change how you operate tend to stick with you, and that's one I never forget.
What keeps me awake at night is, I think, the science. I really love the science and meteorology, and kind of touched on this already earlier, but the monsoon is so complex. You have local scale, you get regional, you even have global potential impacts for like El Nino. The science is so complex, and really at the end of the day, we want to deliver accurate forecasts to prevent flooding, injuries, deaths, any kind of impact to the infrastructure. That's why we're here. So what keeps me up at night is knowing that we're getting a little bit closer, I think, every day. We're inching closer on our understanding and connecting the dots on how to make that truly accurate forecast to help save lives.
What keeps me up at night is myself. I'm a meteorologist. I have a responsibility here at the flood control to, make the important calls, know when it's raining, when it, where, what the impacts are. And I think that like my body chemistry, I don't know if it's my brain, if it's my heart, what part of my body is controlling it, but something keeps me like just above a deep sleep when it's raining. And I can't tell you how it works. I can't tell you how quickly it happened to me, but when, there's responsibility to be had by myself, it's a different night's sleep.
What keeps me up at night? Our alert system, those alarms. When it starts raining, the phone goes off. It's making this loud siren noise. My wife's hitting me saying, "Turn off your alarm!" The flood warning program is truly 24/7, 365. We have a responsibility here at the Flood Control District to provide communication to the people of Maricopa County, and we do that by letting the people that protect the public know where it's flooding, where heavy rain's falling. So the flood warning program itself is its own beast, and yeah, it doesn't allow for a whole lot of sleep during the summer.
Right now, it's June 15th to September 30th. What does this mean? It means within that range of calendar dates, we can expect some thunderstorm impacts, the heavy rain threat, right? That's kind of what everyone's interested in. The severe weather that goes with the monsoon, dust storms, lightning, hail, all of that. However, weather does not follow a calendar. It really, truly, when the ingredients are there, when we talk about the cooking analogy, the right ingredients can get you that thunderstorm. It's really when those are in place. So we can see heavy rain. We've seen it even last year in 2025, June 1st, we had a very strong round of thunderstorms that rolled through, right? Technically that was before June 15th, the official start of the monsoon, but it doesn't mean we can't have monsoon type impacts early June and even going into closer to Halloween even. We saw that last year as well when we had Eastern Pacific tropical cyclone activity move the strong thunderstorm threat into mid-October. What weather pet peeve I would have is that I think people expect a certain forecast, like with certainty, a high confidence forecast, and that just I think we forget how complex the atmosphere is and what goes into it, and so it's difficult to have a perfect forecast.
Yeah, I would say weather pet peeve is overpromising. I think that falls
Okay.
in the same
Yeah,
lines.
yeah.
As sometimes people can expect too much because they get it, and that's not reality.
My weather monsoon pet peeve is people still driving through flooded washes despite knowing all the dangers and consequences. They still think they know better than water.
There's a lot of interest in meteorology, and it makes sense. Like even from little kids, it's awe-inspiring, it's powerful, it's very tangible. Everyone feels the weather, even walking out in a humid day. With that in mind, there are a lot of folks in the Arizona weather community and in national that are really focused on delivering highly accurate forecasts as much as feasibly possible. So there's a certain amount of expertise, there's a certain experience, there's a certain knowledge that works with that. So I think the idea of trusted weather sources is important when you're making decisions that can be impacted by a forecast such as flooding or severe weather, any severe weather you can think of in the monsoon.
It's important to listen to trusted weather sources, especially when it comes to high impact weather days where severe weather, flooding, heat, all those things that come into play during the monsoon season, your trusted weather sources is your best way to go. It's also important that all of us here in the Valley acknowledge the weather. If you're passionate about the weather, we encourage that. If you want to share your pictures on social media or the news, that's awesome. What we want to try and avoid, though, is people spreading false information or trying to confuse the public or trying to mislead the public, especially during high impact weather days. We don't want that because that can result in deaths, that can result in loss of property, that can result in mistrust for other trusted weather sources.
What I'd like to add about the idea of when you have a passion for meteorology, what's great about meteorology is that a lot of the data that trusted weather authorities have is available to the public. So anyone can actually look at these long-range models, high-resolution short-term models, all that. One caution though, we talked about the forecast certainty in the modern age, where it truly is within a few days when we can really get a handle on a high impact event. Some of these models go out much further than a week. And so sometimes these models can give the impression that a high impact event is on its way. However, as we get closer, it actually starts becoming benign, a non-event, that kind of thing. This is where the experience and knowledge of those working in the meteorology field can actually separate the noise of models and bring it more in line with the certainty as we get closer to an event. So don't get fooled by a long-range model, is what I'm trying to say.
We call it model wish casting.
Yeah.
If you're going beyond 5 days, you're wish casting. Could it come to fruition? Sure. But more than likely, the weather scenario is going to evolve, as Jonny mentioned, from day 5 to day 3 to day 1. And we always try and not get married to any one outcome. Let's take what's most likely to happen, not what we want to happen. Sometimes that works out.
Yeah.
And we love those big weather events that occur, but being open to change, being open to uncertainty.
Yeah, and that's the nature of the monsoon, because we talked about also how it can be too wet to rain. So the idea of after a big outbreak of thunderstorms, you can have a down day. So a lot of what happens today in the monsoon can affect tomorrow's forecast. So that immediately throws the long-range model output into question on what happens in the today. So it really is a short-term forecast focus when you have the monsoon environment.
I hear a lot from a lot of online discourse and maybe people that like the monsoon's dead, that, you know, the real monsoon doesn't happen anymore. We don't get the storms like we used to back when, you know, everyone was kids way back when. And
I haven't seen rain like this in 50 years.
Yeah, monsoon's dead. It died 10 years ago. We're never going to see it again.
That is so true.
I see that discourse a lot. I see it pretty regularly. And yes, the monsoon is evolving, and I'm sure it changes over time, you know, in ways that maybe we can't even calculate or understand right now. But the monsoon is still very much alive. The wind shift still happens, and the monsoon threats still happen. We still have severe flooding. We still have lightning. We still have dust storms. We still have everything related to the monsoon. It may look a little bit different than it used to when you were a kid, and maybe we've had a couple down years, and, you know, I am not responsible for that, I promise, and we are not responsible for that. But
They are responsible.
they are responsible. Yeah, we're not responsible for that, but we're doing what we can, and monsoon's still alive.
I just want to kind of continue on with this idea that the monsoon is dead or is not the same when folks were younger in the valley. You know, we're talking like 30, 40 years ago. But just to put things in perspective, like just in the 21st century, from 2000, if you look at our alert network, we have all these wonderful gauges monitoring the monsoon. Our driest monsoon, we still had 50% of days in July and August record some kind of measurable rain. So I think one of those things that might be surprising for folks here is it's actually wetter than what folks might realize. It may not always make it into your house or in the valley, but when you look at South Central Arizona and Central Arizona mountains, it's actually very much here every single year. And we always see the heavy rain events. Again, it may not be at your house, but somewhere in that 10,000 square miles that is Maricopa County, there's a heavy rain event every monsoon.
I honestly think the funniest monsoon misconception, joke, whatever, is these early calls. The monsoon season is a bust. This event was a bust. We have a dry July. I want to use monsoon 2025, last season, as a perfect example. All over social media, by the end of July and the start of August, is the monsoon dead for the season? It's a total bust. We expected an active season. Well, sure enough, in August, the monsoon ridge put itself up in the four corners. It was a favorable position. We started seeing multiple heavy events, lots of rainfall, and then we got into September, and then the ridge decided to park itself in West Texas, and we had tropical cyclone activity that continued into October, and we ended up seeing one of the wettest finishes to the season, and then the wettest fall season that we've had. So that would be your meteorological fall, September, October, November, that we've seen in the Phoenix area, if not ever, for a long time. So people are so quick to call something a bust when by 7 o'clock, thunderstorms haven't come off the higher terrain and made it into the valley. And then sure enough, rim to valley does its thing. The outflow boundaries make their way down, and 9, 10, 11 o'clock, people have fallen asleep and they hear the thunder and get the rain. Don't be so quick to call things a bust. A lot of times during the monsoon, whether it's the season as a whole or a particular event, things take time to unfold. It's not going to happen right now. You have to wait sometimes. You have to wait.
We think that the monsoon is like the June 15th to September 30th being the wettest period. So in 2018, we actually had an alert station register over 7 inches. So that was actually due to tropical cyclone activity. So it can tell you that heavy rain can exist outside of the traditional monsoon between June 15th and September 30th. So 7 inches in one day, that is nuts. And obviously that's impactful. And that happened north of Phoenix, in the southern Yavapai County area, but still our alert network.
My favorite monsoon stat, it doesn't even necessarily have to do with monsoon, it just has to do with water. People constantly forget how heavy water is and how powerful water is. When we talk about weather and then we talk about hydrology, we like to use this term cubic foot per second. Cubic foot per second would say roughly about the size of a basketball. That basketball weighs 60 pounds. Most streams that see runoff can see anywhere from several hundred cubic feet per second to tens of thousands of cubic feet per second of water moving by. So imagine 1,000 basketballs moving past you at some velocity that each weigh roughly 60 pounds. So about 1,000 cubic feet per second has the same mass as a full-size fire truck. And that would be a fire truck coming past you every second. That's exerting a force quite a bit stronger than that. Water is very, very, very powerful. Don't forget.
Favorite monsoon sound is actually raindrops hitting the windshield. That's so relaxing.
Favorite monsoon sound, thunder.
Favorite monsoon sound, the buzzing of the Apache cicadas.
What lightning or rain? I gotta take rain.
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 Super El Nino.
Yeah, I would actually say the monsoon season itself, just because we get locked into thinking it's between certain calendar dates, and it really can be anywhere in the summer months and even fall months.
The term monsoon does not mean thunderstorm. It's the seasonal wind shift. Monsoon is not a thunderstorm.
One word description of monsoon, amazing.
One word description of the monsoon, chaotic.
One word description of the monsoon, stressful.
I'm going wet.
I want to say like a near normal. Maybe just above normal, so wet.
I'm gonna go with a dry start and a wet finish for an overall wet monsoon.